You wake at 3 in the morning and the dream is still wrapped around your throat like a hand you cannot see. You've had it again. The one where you're drowning in faces, or speaking words that dissolve before they reach anyone's ears, or discovering rooms in your own house you never knew existed. You tell yourself it means nothing. You tell yourself everyone dreams, but there's a specific quality to these nocturnal visitations that you recognize even if you've never named it. A weight, a message, an accusation from somewhere beneath your waking mind that knows you've been lying about who you are. Carl Jung spent 50 years documenting a phenomenon that the extroverted world refuses to acknowledge. Introverts don't just dream differently. They dream compensatory material that reveals the violence being done to their psyche by a culture that demands constant performance, constant availability, constant translation of depth into digestible shallowness. Your dreams are not random. They are diagnostic instruments reporting from the front lines of a war between your authentic nature and the persona you've constructed to survive social expectation. And if you're experiencing these 6 specific dream types with any regularity, your unconscious is not whispering anymore. It's screaming. The first dream arrives like suffocation. You're trapped in an endless social gathering. Faces press toward you from every direction. Conversations multiply like cells dividing, each one demanding your participation, your energy, your presence. You try to leave, but the crowd follows. You try to speak, but your voice produces no sound. Or worse, produces sounds that generate more demands for explanation, more requests for your attention. The walls recede as more people arrive. There is no exit. There is no silence. There is only the mounting pressure of being consumed by collective expectation. You wake with your heart racing and the specific exhaustion that comes not from physical exertion, but from psychic invasion. Jung identified this as the psyche's rebellion against forced extroversion. Your unconscious is showing you what your waking consciousness refuses to admit. That every social obligation you've accepted out of guilt, every gathering you've attended while dying inside, every conversation you've performed while your real self retreated deeper into interior exile, all of it registers as violence in the unconscious. The dream is compensation, your inner world creating the experience of suffocation, because that's the accurate name for what's happening to you. And beneath this dream lies shadow material you've been taught never to acknowledge: rage. Not the polite frustration of someone who needs alone time, the actual rage of a being whose nature is being systematically denied, whose depth is being treated as malfunction, whose need for solitude is being pathologized as antisocial behavior. The second dream speaks in languages you've lost or never learned. You open your mouth and words emerge that no one can understand, or everyone around you speaks in perfect fluency while you've somehow forgotten how language works. You know what you mean to say. The meaning exists fully formed in your interior world, but the translation from inner to outer fails completely. People stare at you with confusion or pity or irritation. You try again, the gap widens. This is the introvert's core wound made visible. The fundamental experience of possessing depth that has no adequate external form. Jung called this the failure of the transcendent function, the psyche's inability to build a bridge between the unconscious and consciousness, between the inner truth and the outer expression. But listen carefully. This dream is not about learning to communicate better. It's about recognizing that what you're trying to translate may not be translatable into the language the collective speaks. Your unconscious is showing you that the problem is not your articulation. The problem is that you're trying to speak depth to a world that trades only in surface. And every time you fail at this translation, every time someone responds to your carefully chosen words with incomprehension or dismissal, you internalize the failure as yours, rather than recognizing it as a fundamental incompatibility between your operating system and consensus reality. Then comes the dream of empty rooms. You're in a familiar building, your childhood home or your workplace or a school you once attended, but you discover doors you never noticed before. Behind them stretch vast spaces, silent, unpopulated, sometimes beautiful in their emptiness, sometimes terrifying in their scale, but always calling to something in you that recognizes these spaces as more real than the populated rooms you've been occupying. This is not a dream of loneliness, Jung understood this distinction with precision. This is yourself calling you toward individuation through architectural symbolism. The empty room is sacred solitude. The solitude your waking life systematically denies you, because you've been convinced that choosing to be alone is choosing to be less than, choosing to be broken, choosing to fail at the human project of connection. But your unconscious knows better. It knows that these empty spaces are not voids to be filled, they are sanctuaries to be inhabited. And this dream intensifies in direct proportion to how over-socialized you've become. How many hours you've spent performing availability while your real self starves for the very emptiness this dream offers. Stop watching. Go to the comments and write, "I see my shadow." Do it now. Because what comes next requires your conscious participation, not your passive consumption. Jung discovered that the psyche refuses full revelation to those who remain spectators of their own transformation. And what I'm about to show you demands that you stop hiding behind the screen of observation and declare, even anonymously, even in 3 words, that you recognize what your unconscious has been showing you while you sleep. The 4th dream type that haunts the introvert is what Jung called the observer dream. You are watching your own life from outside your body, invisible to everyone, including yourself. You see yourself moving through conversations, through obligations, through the entire performance of your daily existence, but you are not in it. You are hovering somewhere above or behind, witnessing a person who wears your face but does not contain your essence. And here's what makes this dream so psychologically dangerous. You feel relief in this position. The detachment is not terrifying, it is comforting. You finally do not have to participate in the exhausting theater of social reality. Jung warned that this dream reveals something far more severe than simple introspection. This is dissociation masquerading as self-awareness. The introverted intuitive type in particular faces a unique psychological hazard. Your natural gift is the ability to perceive patterns, to read beneath surfaces, to understand dynamics that others miss entirely. But this gift becomes pathological when perception replaces participation. When observation becomes a permanent position rather than a temporary tool. You begin to disappear not just from social gatherings, but from your own life. You become so skilled at watching yourself that you forget you are supposed to be living yourself. The shadow material in this dream is the part of you that has given up on being seen, not just misunderstood, actually seen. You have concluded somewhere in your developmental history that your authentic presence is either too much or not enough for consensus reality. So you develop this psychological mechanism of splitting. One part of you performs the minimum viable participation in the outer world. Another part retreats into pure observation, watching from a safe distance, never risking the vulnerability of full presence. And your unconscious is showing you this split every time you have this dream because it is trying to warn you that you are losing the capacity for integration. Jung understood that the introvert's greatest spiritual danger is not social rejection. It is disappearing so completely into the inner world that you lose the ability to incarnate at all. You become a ghost in your own life, present but not participating, aware but not engaged. And the most insidious aspect of this condition is that it feels like enlightenment. It feels like you have transcended the petty concerns of ego and social performance. But Jung would tell you that true transcendence includes the ego, integrates it, uses it as a vehicle for consciousness in the world. What you are experiencing in this observer dream is not transcendence. It is abandonment of the individuation project. The 5th dream type takes you deeper still, the underwater breathing dream. You find yourself submerged in water, sometimes ocean, sometimes lake, sometimes depths that have no name. And you are breathing, effortlessly. You are surviving in an environment where others would drown. You move through these depths with an ease that would be impossible in waking life. And you feel more at home in this submerged world than you have ever felt on the surface. Your unconscious is revealing your true element. The deep interior world is not a place you visit. It is where you actually live. Jung spoke of the collective unconscious as an ocean, vast and dark, and filled with contents that predate personal history. And introverts, particularly those with developed intuitive functions, are natural divers. You do not just dip into these waters, you can sustain yourself there. You can breathe what would suffocate others. You access material, images, insights, patterns that exist beneath the threshold of normal waking consciousness. And this is both your gift and your curse. Because while you are breathing underwater, the surface world continues without you. Relationships happen, opportunities pass. The entire machinery of external life operates in a realm where you cannot breathe as easily as you do in the depths. And here is the terror and ecstasy that this dream reveals. You are more alive in the unconscious than you are in consensus reality. The depths are not a retreat from life. They are where you encounter life most directly. The surface world, with its small talk and social protocols and performance of normalcy, that is what feels like suffocation to you. Jung knew that this dream appears most frequently to those who have touched something real in the collective unconscious. You have accessed archetypal material that most people only encounter in crisis or breakdown. And once you know you can breathe down there, once you discover that the depths are navigable, you face a terrible choice. Do you spend your life trying to translate what you find in those depths to people who have never been below the surface? Or do you accept that you are built for a different kind of existence entirely? The sixth dream type is the nightmare that wakes you with your heart pounding. The pursued by the crowd dream. Masses of people chasing you, hunting you, demanding something you cannot give. Sometimes they want you to speak, to perform, to be someone you are not. Sometimes they simply want to consume you, to absorb you back into the collective, to eliminate the differentiation you represent. You run through streets, through buildings, through landscapes that shift and trap you, and the crowd is always behind you, always closing in, never stopping. This is the introvert's core nightmare, and Jung understood it as the psyche's most urgent warning signal. You are being consumed by collective expectations. The persona, that mask you wear to interface with social reality, has become so demanding, so all-encompassing, that it is devouring the self. Every time you perform extroversion to make others comfortable, every time you suppress your need for solitude to avoid being called antisocial, every time you translate your depth into superficial pleasantries, you feed the crowd. And the crowd is never satisfied. It always wants more. More availability, more performance, more evidence that you are just like everyone else. The violence in this dream is not metaphorical. Jung saw the collective as genuinely dangerous to the individuating psyche. The pressure to conform, to normalize, to abandon your unique psychological structure in favor of group coherence, this pressure is a form of psychological violence. And your unconscious knows it. The crowd in your dream represents every voice that has ever told you that your introversion is a problem to be solved, that your depth is pretension, that your need for solitude is selfishness. And when you have abandoned your inner voice for too long, when you have betrayed your own nature repeatedly to maintain social acceptability, this dream becomes recurring. The crowd will chase you every night until you stop running from yourself and start defending your boundaries in waking life.